what I've learned is that there are times when we don't even know the inner strength that we have within us when something tragic or devastating happened to us in our life. Like I could not imagine that I would be able to do all that. I just thought that is just impossible to deal with. I would say to your listeners that a lot of times when tragedy or setback happens in your life, you can also view it as an opportunity and a test of your character.
Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita, and the founder of Power Purpose Play, a global community of women in midlife. I'm here to tell you that it's your time now to rediscover what has always been inside of you and bring that out into the world. If you're wondering what's next, but don't know quite what that is, or if you feel a twinge in your heart telling you that you have so much more to do and so much more to offer, you're in the right place. Ask yourself, if not now, when? Do you want to leave your job, start your own business, take control of your health, reignite the passion in your marriage, write that book, or at least that first chapter? Transitions like this can be daunting, but through listening to my story and interviews with incredible women every week, I hope to inspire you to take action. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Hi, dear friends, and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. As we're almost nearing Christmas and the new year, I'm sure things are very busy for you, but I hope you also take this precious time with your family and friends to recharge, play, and just be. We will have one more podcast for the year after this one, and then I'll be off also for a week relaxing with my family and friends. I have been planning and thinking a lot about 2023, and I'm excited to share with you on my next episode all my plans to serve you in the new year. As you listen to this inspirational podcast episode with Zhu Shen, I invite you to think about some of the things she brings up in the podcast. One is that we often don't even know the inner strength and power we have inside of us until it is tested. And the second is to live the life you imagine. I have a special giveaway for you which will help you live the life you imagine for yourself. It is a perfect time in the next few weeks to set aside some time for yourself and reflect and rediscover who you are and who you want to be for 2023. If you're feeling stuck, perhaps your current work is not maximizing your full potential, and you know you have so much more to offer, but don't even know where to start, this will help you. If you want 2023 to be the year you finally pursue your buried passions, take 10 minutes to fill out this free, downloadable, and fillable self-reflection guide for 2023. The prompts in this free self-reflection guide will help you take stock of your current life satisfaction and give you some space to think about what you really want for yourself in the new year and beyond. This is a glimpse into some of the elements of my coaching program, and it will allow you to reflect quietly on your vision for yourself. The link to the download on this free self-reflection guide is in the show notes. If you have any questions about it or would like to find out more on how I can help you transition into a career and life which aligns with your strengths, your passions, and your values, send me a quick email at kavita@powerpurposeplay.ca. That's KAVITA @powerpurposeplay.ca. The whole reason I come here every week is to expand your belief as to what is possible for you. If not now, when, my friend? I want you to say with confidence, it's my time now. Don't forget to download this complimentary self-reflection guide. Enjoy the episode, and I'll see you at the end with the key takeaways. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and I am a certified women's life and career transitions coach and the founder of Power Purpose Play, which is a global community of women in midlife. My mission is to inspire women like you to rediscover yourself and bring clarity to the next chapter in your life, and to say with confidence, it's my time now. As part of this mission, I interview incredible women for this podcast who share their stories of reinvention and who will give you their advice on how to overcome the obstacles in your way to reach your vision for yourself in your next stage of life. This week's is absolutely no exception, and that I'm honored to have on the show Zhu Shen. Dr. Shen is a biotech CEO turned award-winning filmmaker, best known for her 2 Oscar-qualified, critically acclaimed animation shorts that she's produced. The first one being Ingrid Pitt, Beyond the Forest, about a young Holocaust survivor, animated by her 11-year-old son, Perry Chen, and Changyou's Journey, about her late husband's life, written and directed by Perry Chen. She is currently writing, directing, and producing her personal documentary feature, Journey of 1,000 Miles, endorsed by Janet Yang, president of the Academy of Motion Pictures. That's amazing. Zhu's love for movies started while watching propaganda films in her childhood during the Chinese Cultural Revolution. In her former life, she was an award-winning biotech executive, author, speaker, and China business expert featured on national and trade media, including Fox, Business Week, China Central Television, Pharmaceutical Executive, and The Scientist magazine. She earned her PhD in biochemistry from the University of Colorado, her MBA at Cornell University, studied medicine at Peking Union Medical College, and pre-med at Peking University. Oh my goodness. Welcome to the podcast, Zhu. How are you? I'm so pleased to have you here, and your background is so interesting, and I can't wait to get into everything. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kavita. It's my great pleasure and honor to join you at your podcast.
Thank you.
A fellow former biotech pharmaceutical executive.
Yes. We have very kind of interesting, similar in a way backgrounds. We're both Asian. We're both in backgrounds in biotech and pharma, and so yeah, we'll get into that. But before we do, I wanted to
fellow moms too.
And fellow moms. I have 2 sons as well, and so. Yeah. I really would love to, talk about what you're doing right now. But before I do, I wanted to just kind of go backwards a little bit, and maybe you can tell our audience about your childhood. And I touched on that a little bit in the introduction, but how you were, when we were young, you actually started out as an artist, and the seeds of filmmaking were kind of sown as you watched these movies growing up in China. And so how did you go from that, the artistic kind of seeds being planted, to pursuing medicine and then biomedical research?
I'm happy to share, Kavita.
Yes.
So I was born a few months before the Cultural Revolution in China, and it was a time of great turmoil. My parents were both intellectuals. That's a classification, meaning that they were college educated. My dad was a organic chemist, graduated from Peking University. My mom studied engineering, and so she was the editor-in-chief of Agricultural Engineering Trade magazine at a very young age. So they're both amazing scientists and engineer in their trade, highly accomplished. So during the Cultural Revolution, like many intellectuals, they were sent to labor camp to work in the fields with the peasants. And I actually was brought to the same place with them. I was about 4 or 5 years old. In fact, I started first grade at age 6 at the labor camp with 3 other kids who were taught by my dad's colleague. And so you can imagine that kind of childhood, very harsh. But interestingly, as I watched these communist propaganda movies, a lot of them were from China, others from communist countries like the Soviet Union, North Korea, Yugoslavia, and so forth. They were fascinating to me because that was the only entertainment available. There's nothing else. And so I was captivated by the moving pictures and lost myself in the stories of other places and other people from other countries. And so movie was such a big part of my life. Then when we returned back to Beijing a few years later, I entered an elementary school. And then at the time, the youth were sent to the countryside after graduation from high school because colleges were all shuttered. There was no college to go to. And so my parents thought me being always the youngest in my class, I started at 6 years old, where other kids were 7 or older. And they thought for me to survive the harsh environment in the countryside with manual labor, it would be helpful if I have some talent in drawing. So at least I can participate in creating some propaganda art poster while in the field. And so they were so loving and thoughtful towards me. And I learned that later on when I was older, that was the intention to allow me to possibly escape a little bit from harsh labor all the time. But what we didn't expect was that in 76, which was 10 years after the start of the Cultural Revolution, the country changed leadership and the Cultural Revolution ended. So the following year, college reopened. So now all of a sudden the young people can go back to college, but it was super competitive. I started college in 82. So at that time, only 4% of high school graduates in Beijing get to go to college because of the limited space and teaching faculty and so forth. So it was super competitive. And even though I loved art, I excelled in that, I was trained formally in drawing through my parents' encouragement. Art was not a viable career. And also having suffered during the Cultural Revolution, my parents, they didn't want me to get anywhere near into humanity or the arts because that's where you can get into trouble for having independent thoughts and creativity and think differently from others. So most parents in their days want their kids to pursue a STEM career, as you know, because it's stable, pays well, and it's not dependent upon political movement of what's going on. Because as a doctor, for example, people always get sick. They always need to see a doctor. So my dad urged me to apply for Peking Union Medical College, which was the top medical school in China, funded with money from the Rockefeller Foundation, the early 1900s. We had an 8-year curriculum, so we would get higher degree after graduation. So my dad thought that would be best for me. And I had no feelings for being a doctor, and it wasn't something that interested me, but I thought that sounds very reasonable and rational. And I also didn't think I was creative enough either. So it's sort of like, I'll be a doctor. So I entered in 82. 6 years later, when China really opened up with so many opportunities and young people can apply for US graduate schools. And so then my then boyfriend, Changyou, already got accepted to University of Colorado School of Medicine as a graduate student. And then I was applying through the regular channel. He got in through writing a professor directly who did similar research as him. So for me, I had to go through the official process with taking TOEFL, the English foreign language. But then I did very well. I got the 3rd highest score in my testing district. But then I ran out of time to prepare for my GRE. So instead of trying that and not do as well as I wish, I decided to do something very outlandish and crazy. I applied for only a handful of schools. All of them except one rejected me because I didn't have GRE score to prove myself, as all the other students are required to take. But University of Wisconsin-Madison didn't reject me outright. So I thought, maybe I have some chance. I have nothing to lose. So one night in the lab, I was in the hallway of the lab. I called the international switchboard and made a collect call to the admissions committee chairman, Dr. Paul Ludden. Prior to that, I talked to my dad, who always taught me that you're only limited by your own imagination. So I thought, here I am, I've done a great research project in the lab rotation, and I want to just give it a try. And I was very nervous. I can hear the switchboard calling him and tell him that there is a call from Beijing, China. Collect call.
Wow. Okay.
I will take that. Oh, it was just amazing. And we ended up having a wonderful conversation for about 15 minutes. I told Dr. Ludden about my research project and my desire to join them. And I told him I think I could be a very good candidate for their program. And he even had a professor who was doing apolipoprotein research, which was similar to what I was doing in the lab rotation, listen in. And in the end, Dr. Ludden said, let me circle back with my committee and I'll get back to you in 2-3 days. And indeed, in 3 days, I received the first and only telegram in my life. That was 88. There was no email.
Telegram, okay.
So it says that I'm accepted with full scholarship.
Wow.
And so that was the first collect call that I made that was truly life-changing. And I became fearless after that because I was motivated to join my then boyfriend, fiance, to come to the US. If I was not able to come out, it could also mean the end of our relationship, possibly.
Yes.
So I was extremely motivated. And indeed, the rest is history. We got married.
Yes.
After I went to Wisconsin-Madison. We were separated. He was in Colorado. I was in Madison, Wisconsin. So that's the first chapter of my life, how I came to the U.S.
Thank you for sharing. It's such an interesting story. And there's just some things that really reached me like emotionally, in that when you said that when you were watching the communist propaganda movies, and that was the only form of entertainment. And that's interesting to me because even though from somebody outside, you wouldn't imagine that that's something you see artistic.
Right.
But as a child, you saw it as something artistic, and it was your escape from the harsh labor camp that you were in. And so that really struck me as something, wow, you can see beauty in anything, right? And so that was kind of your start to...
Yes, that's my start and exposure to the art form of cinematic.
Yes. And then we'll get into how that, And then the other thing, and that's similar in our lives because we're both Asian, and your parents wanted the best for you, as did mine. And so always encouraging, the education and the STEM, like you were saying, science, and as a rational, and it's fine. And I think that's what they knew, and that's what they wanted for us. And there was nothing wrong with it at the time, right?
It made a lot of sense.
And then, and then the third thing is your incredible courage to reach out to Dr. Ludden, you said?
Yes.
On that research product. I mean, who would do that nowadays? Collect, no less, right?
Yeah. So Kavita, I think that's what really attracted him about this quality in me, that I'm gutsy and I'm not afraid to 100%. Do something crazy, because no one else in my school has ever thought of doing that. So in fact, after I got accepted with full scholarship, it spread like wildfire in my campus. Like all the students knew about it. So now there's a a flurry of collect calls made to other schools that my friends and classmates.
He's probably like, uh-oh, maybe I shouldn't have answered that.
A trend. Yes. So,
yeah, that's
and
great.
I think that also this fearlessness really empowered me to think about possibilities in life. A lot of times, 80% of it is just to show up and ask people what you want. And I'm blessed that most of the time, I would say 80% or more of the time, people say yes to me because I thought of asking.
That's so true. I mean, we're sometimes so afraid to even ask, right? And I know since I've met you, I've seen that courage and that confidence that yes, if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. So,
yeah.
Right.
After I started my first job, I read pharmaceutical executive magazines regularly. I noticed around 2003, 2004, that is the time when China biotech was booming in the areas of providing contract research to a big pharma, as you probably know in those days. And so I had friends who went back to start their own companies and doing amazing things. But I saw very little coverage in the US because it was so new. People didn't know those who are doing that. And so I then reached out to the editor-in-chief of Pharmaceutical Executive Magazine, Patrick Clinton, through cold call. It's not a collect call anymore, but cold call. I just said, I love your magazine, but I noticed you have no coverage about what's going on in China. And he said, I don't have anyone to write. It's very fascinating to me. And so I told him I could write it. He said, yeah, send me a draft. I'll publish it. So this is a magazine from
Nice.
Executive. And this is actually my second piece that was published in 2008. It's called Unleash a Dragon.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a great story as well. It speaks to your fearlessness, and we need to have more of that. And I think it also leads to, I guess my next question is not only fearlessness, it's about, we talk here about rediscovering ourselves, right? Especially for women. And there was a quote that you had said, and it says that it's never too late to reinvent and be guided by your curiosity and passion to learn something new, something entirely new. Your life can be your art, and your art can be your life. So there is no reason for us not to live the life that we imagine.
Right.
So you told us about your journey from China to getting into being a successful scientist and executive. But tell us now how this dormant love of art was reawakened in your life.
It was quite a process. So even though I went on a different path along the STEM career and then later into business, the love of art is always with me. After I finished my PhD during my postdoc year, I actually I have this habit of visiting art galleries, museums, and also attend art festivals. So I was in Denver, Colorado at the time and attending this Cherry Creek Arts Festival. Every year they have the July 4th weekend. And I met this artist who did amazing pastel pieces. I fell in love and I talked to him about how to learn pastel, and he gave me some tips and I got books and just practiced making that. Previously, I've learned mostly pencil drawing. I've never done pastel, but I was very delighted that I was able to produce
that's beautiful.
Pieces like that from art books, just the photograph and other people's pieces. I did a study of that. So it's a sunset with boats.
Lovely.
Yeah. So I always have that love of art in me. And that really was magnified when I became a mom in 2000, when my son Perry was born. He became this delightful, precocious young boy who has this wonder about the world and very artistic, imaginative, and creative. And I started telling him stories, really soon after he was born. And when he started to know how to talk, I would tell him fairy tales about our Chinese, legendary stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that at about age 2, he started to weave himself into these stories, which was absolutely amazing and magical.
At 2.
Yeah, 2 years old.
Okay. Wow.
So
Okay.
I would record him tell these stories on my little digital recorder, and I saved a lot of them. I archived all these stories that he told. They're just so dear to me, and it just captured this childhood wonder. And so I felt like this love of art also reawakened in myself. I always enjoy going out with him to explore the neighborhood, go on nature walks, and take him to art galleries and museums and into nature. And so when he started drawing when he was 3 years old. And he just loved it and got better and better and got him art teachers and so forth. And when he was in 3rd grade in elementary school, his teacher told me at parent-teacher conference that Perry was already reading at high school level at that age. He was 8 years old at the time. And so I thought, wow, this is amazing. I was so thrilled to hear that. But I thought reading is so solitary and you cannot really know how much a child has learned through reading. So I thought, how about if I get him to do some writing? He loves books and we would go to bookstores every Friday night. That's our routine. So I thought if I can get him to write some book reviews, then I can track his progress and give him some challenge. I can coach him too about how to write well. So his teacher loved the idea and we started this extracurricular activity and Perry was game. He started writing and then soon enough, he asked me to watch animation films with him on our TV, on DVD. And so I thought, oh, he's artistically talented. He loves animation. And every year, there are only a handful of great animation big releases from studios like Pixar, Disney, and DreamWorks. I thought, how about if I get him to write some movie reviews, animation? And again, he was game because okay. He was a good boy. And
you're so creative.
Initially fun for him.
Yes.
So I worked with him on how to write a good movie review. And his teacher would review his writing and write encouraging comments. So that's our routine. And soon enough, his writing was so good that I felt he was at the level of being able to get published, that quality. So I talked to a local friend who's the publisher of We Chinese magazine and weekly newspaper. And my friend Ma Ping loved it. And she decided to create a column for my son. So he could write reviews on the weekly newspaper on the day that the films are released. And with that, he has a bona fide media outlet that publishes his reviews. And with that, I was able to get him press credential. With that, we get invitation twice a week to see movies before they're released. I felt he was ready for prime time. So I contacted someone in my LinkedIn network, first level, who was a publicist and from Wisconsin, my old school area. So I told Scott the story about my son's movie reviews. He loved it. He said, oh, I think a good friend of mine, Ben Tracy, who's correspondent with CBS News, he might be interested in this story, a young film critic. And by that time, Perry has already established himself locally as a child critic and his movie reviews were well liked. And so that led to the CBS Evening News coverage. Wow. It's the end of newscast human interest story. And they came within a week, actually less than a week of our first call. It was so exciting. I had no time to even get all the people, the principal at the school and the publicist, the PR firm. But we were able to finally get everyone on the same page and supporting this feature because it's win-win for everyone.
Yes.
And I've learned so much from watching how the professionals work on telling
That's
a really
incredible.
fascinating short story on the
Yes.
newscast. And that was also a life-changing event. And Perry enjoyed the moment in the limelight. And he did so well. And he was so genuine and a child who speaks his mind about
Yes.
movies. So
I love that because it just speaks to all the things that you were kind of aware of your son and all the things that you opened yourself and himself up to in his life to go for again. What's fearless about going after
yeah,
what you wanted and it's kind of putting the pieces together and really watching him, understanding what his interests are, and then going for it, and ending up on the CBC Evening News. So, but I wanted
yes,
to thank you for sharing. That's a great example of all that we've talked about. But I also wanted to find out from you how the Changyou's journey was created,
yes,
and it kind of relates back to your artistic abilities as
right.
well. And tell us about that. What happened there, and what are some of the obstacles that you may have faced as you were thinking of releasing this with your son?
Yes. So we did the movie reviews for many years from 2009. And then in 2010, by that time, by the way, my husband, Changyou, who was Stanford-trained cancer researcher and biotech founder, he had a great job opportunity to work in China at the newly established research institute in Guangzhou, and then later became a biotech CEO, developing cancer drugs, antibody drugs, and cancer. So that's his specialty. He was commuting back and forth. He would spend 2 months in China and about a month here with us. So it was very challenging cross-Pacific family structure and very, very challenging. I became a single mom most of the time, virtual single mom. So we were doing all the things at the height of my tiger mom phase in those days. I really cared about providing the best opportunity for my son to shine. He is such a great artist, so I want to find ways for him to hopefully have a career in the arts that will help him realize his own dream, creating things. So I read the Tiger Mom book, but I didn't think I was a Tiger Mom myself because I thought, no, I was just helping my son doing things that he loved and that he excelled at. So I didn't think I was Tiger Mom. If anything, I'm much better than the Tiger Mom. But tragedy strikes at that time. My husband of 20 some years was diagnosed with skin cancer while he was in China. And it was so devastating and so ironic. Like,
Yes.
he's a top-notch cancer researcher.
Wow.
And yet his cancer was not treatable. And so in the end, after his cancer spread, initially diagnosed was only a stage 1 in 2006. And with surgery and everything, it looks promising. But 4 years later, it spread to his lymph nodes. And so at that time, it was very poor prognosis. So that was 2010. And he decided to put his biotech CEO career on the hold and come back to get full-time treatment. So I cared for him for 2 full years from 2010 to 2012. And by that time, in 2011, Perry and I finished our first animated film after being approached by a director at Comic-Con when they saw how good my son's drawing was. So they invited him to make the Ingrid Pitt film. He was the sole animator, and I learned to become a producer by doing it.
Wow.
And so in 2012, about 2 weeks before my husband passed away, when I learned from his oncologist, who thought my husband had just 2 weeks left, I was so devastated. I knew this cancer was late stage, but still, when you hear that
Yes.
verdict, it was just so crushing.
I can't
And
imagine.
I
Yes.
remember walking in the park with my son, Perry, who was 12 years old at the time and who just graduated from elementary school, sixth grade. I said, Perry, what do we do now? Daddy has 2 weeks to live. And he was so calm. He looked at me and said, Mom, I think now I'm ready to animate Daddy's story.
Oh my
I want to
goodness.
do that to give him hope to live longer because every day I'll show him new drawings for Changyou's journey.
Oh my goodness.
And I was just so profoundly moved by Perry's deep love for his dad. And I felt, how can I not support that? I'll do everything in my power to
Of
help
course.
him make that film a reality. And then I decided also at the time to pick up a camera. At the time, a very primitive, well, it was high end then. It was the iPad 2
Okay.
camera on the iPad that I got as a gift for Christmas that year. And so I decided to document the last days of Changyu and Perry together, and also document both my son's growth as a person and as an artist. And I told my son, as you're making Changyou's journey, I'm going to make my own documentary film called Journey of 1,000 Miles.
Mm.
And because I knew that no matter what happens, it's going to be a fascinating story, given what we have gone through and having guided Perry to review hundreds of movies. I
Mm-hmm.
know a great story when I'm living it. So that's the origin of
Wow.
the documentary Journey of 1,000 Miles.
Hi, my friend. Kavita here. Do you often feel blocked from moving forward? We all feel that way at times. These are referred to as energy blocks. I've created a short, actionable PDF guide to help you release your negative energy blocks. Click the link in the description to download it now for free. Now, let's get back to the episode. Wow. I guess what strikes me is that walk you had in the park with Perry, and when you told him that, and he was so calm and said that I want to document this story, my father's life, and that's just so moving. I can't imagine how you must have felt, and
I
so
was
then
speechless. Yeah, I was
yes,
just so
yes,
touched by his act of love.
yes,
To him, that's really the best he could do to inspire Changyu to live.
yes, and from then on, then right away you decided to document the journey, which eventually has led to, I was leading to Journey of 1,000 Miles. And so many things. I mean, there's so many things I can ask you, but I guess I was, well, I can ask you about the success of your son's documentary, or his film, but also I wanted to ask you, I saw one of the scenes from the work in progress sample of Journey of 1,000 Miles. And in that clip, your son Perry says to you that it's not about the achievement, it's about personal fulfillment.
Yes.
And it seemed quite very profound to me hearing that from a young boy like that. And
Yes.
I just, maybe you can speak to that, and where has this film come? Well, how has it been really received, and your thoughts on that, what he said to
Yes.
you at that time? Yeah.
So Kavita, it took Perry and I 6 long years to finish Changyou's journey, a 5-minute film, animation film. We
Wow.
went through so much ups and downs during that process. I call it an odyssey. It's an odyssey for us to go from a place of tug of war where we fought a lot about how to make Changyou's journey which my son was the creator. He was a director, writer, editor, and character designer, storyboard artist. And I was the producer, an executive producer. So I was in the business role to make it happen. Perry has his own idea of how he wants to make this film. He meant it to be very small, deeply personal film about his dad. It's just a creative outlet for him to tell his daddy's story. He wants to animate it himself, all by himself with no crew, and doesn't want to get funding or anything like that. He just wants to do it all by himself. And he didn't want to have a deadline, didn't want to have any pressure, because it's not meant to be a film to be watched by a lot of people. It was just a personal expression of an artist, of a grieving boy. I had very different ideas because of the huge success of Ingrid Pitt, also because at the time, my son still expressed interest in becoming a animator, maybe animation director in the arts and making films. And so I thought, well, this is a perfect project for us. It's a deeply personal story. And I have no doubt it will be a very moving story. So I want to reach out to the world to get support from, all these friends and colleagues and families and you name it. We had such great support. And so I also want to make a film that I could be proud of and that could be a great calling card for my son's future in Hollywood. And I thought this will help him to eventually get into the best college. And then if you saw the film, you will see the clip, the sample, you will see that he got a job offer from DreamWorks director.
Yes. I think you played a part in that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the ultimate. He was 10 years old with the DreamWorks director offer, which I captured on camera. I was in my very much a tiger mom mode in those days. And so I thought this is the way it's going to go, and I'll support him however it takes to get the film done. But Kavita, what I didn't realize, the hurdle was that he threatened to quit many times. I never thought of that possibility. I'm not a quitter. And I've raised quite a bit of money from friends and families and colleagues. Even the DreamWorks director, Dean DeBlois, made a donation to our film. I was so touched by that. He was among Perry's mentors in animation. So I thought, how can we quit? No way. And you promised your daddy you're going to make that film. But Perry really was against how I was dictating the terms of how the film is being made. It becomes this much bigger production, getting other people involved. I want to hire animators because imagine he's in high school full time. He can't do everything on top of his academic work. So he rebelled. And so he, again, threatened many times to quit, on and off, on and off. And it was torturous. At that time, I was able to connect with a wonderful personal development coach by the name of Walker Clark, who also appeared in the work in progress sample that you saw. Walker and Perry bonded immediately. Who I was hoping to connect at the time was a father figure for my son, which he didn't have anywhere. Like all the male friends I met, he didn't feel any such connection with them. And I was just dying to find someone who could not only be a voice of reason, but also someone he could feel close to, could confide in, and someone who could be a role model to him as well. So found the coach and they just clicked immediately. And over time, Perry developed a relationship and he viewed Walker as a father figure to him. And so Walker was instrumental in helping us in the end get to the finish line and completely change the nature of our relationship. So I remember at one point when Perry again didn't want to do the film. So Walker just asked me in a private one-on-one session with him alone. He said, Ju, I want you to think about if you have to choose between finishing the film and your son's happiness, how are you going to choose? Wow, that was among some of the most difficult choices that I have to make in those days.
And would you say, Ju, that that is kind of the catalyst where you transformed kind of from that tiger mom to what you call
Yes,
yourself a Zen mom?
yes, absolutely. Because
Mm-hmm.
it took me a while to make that very hard decision because my mind was so set on finishing the film and helping my son's career as an artist. I never thought of that possibility and have gotten
Mm-hmm.
money from people. So, but then I thought, I don't know how to do animation. I cannot physically force my son to do it if his heart is not in it. And I also thought my son is not just an extension of my own life, and he's not a vehicle for achievement to brag about. He has his own wishes and desire. He has his own identity separate from mine. And he has his own thoughts about how he wants to live his life. And by that time he was 16 years old. And
Beautiful.
so I thought, I need to let go. And if keeping working on the film makes him miserable, then I don't want that. It's not going to be a good film in that kind of
Yes.
condition, right? So I
Yes.
thought,
Yes.
I do want my son to be happy. And with his creativity, he can do other things in the future if he wants to. So I thought for long and hard, and I came up with the conclusion that, yeah, I want my son to be happy. If that means that he doesn't want to finish the film, I would be okay with it. So I told Perry this on his 16th birthday.
How nice.
I said, I told you before that there's no other option, but now I want to tell you that I'm finishing the film is a very valid option because I want you to be happy and your happiness matters to me.
Oh,
And so I learned that when I'm ready to let go, sometimes magically and unexpectedly, my son comes back to me
mm-hmm.
even closer. So he told me, Mom, I actually always wanted to finish the film, but I want to finish it in the way that I want to do it.
Yes.
And so we ended up becoming wonderful creative partners in that film and also in my own film, the documentary Journey 1,000 Miles. And he ended up becoming my mentor. So we have the role reversal.
Wow.
I mentored him early on movie reviews and how to get a
Yes.
film done. And now he mentors me on how to shoot documentary because he learned that in high school from film class that he
Wow.
took multiple classes. And he was also a writer and producer of the award-winning Canyon Crest Academy student TV station.
Oh,
So
wow.
he has far more knowledge about making documentary film than I, and he now
Yes.
teaches me. And
Yes.
I would say, Kavita, that's among my proudest moments. So when I
Mm-hmm.
realized that my son now can teach me things that I'm
Mm-hmm.
eager to learn.
It's beautiful. I think that the fact that you actually, and you said you let go and then he came back to you. And I see you got emotional and I got emotional too, because sometimes when we hold on to things so hard and we think we have to control things, and then we push people away.
Yes.
And this story of how you just finally came into realization that no, I can let go. And then he automatically came back. And now it's a role reversal of him being your mentor, which is so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought of my own story in that when I was deciding to leave my career after 25 years and We're always worried about what are people going to say, and well, I'm
Right.
not going to be there or whatever, because you're one that's control over
Yes.
your life, right?
Right.
But then if you have the support of your family, and like in your case, your son, in my case, my sons too, and my husband, then it just makes it so much easier. And it
Yes.
just makes it just opens up so much. And
They have your
so
back.
they have your back. And hearing your story from your childhood into now, I just see that there's such a testament in your life to the great courage that you have and that you've developed. And firstly, not only losing your husband to cancer when he was a renowned cancer scientist, which is very ironic in itself, but also to reinventing yourself, to supporting your son, and ultimately living the life as an artist that you kind of always wanted to. So
It's a full circle.
it is a full circle, right? And so I see this courage and power, and that's what I really wanted to have you on here, because a lot of women who may be going through similar things, they're thinking about doing something that's outside of their comfort zone, or they want to reinvent themselves, or they want to do something that they're just afraid to. Maybe you can speak to them and say, how did you find the courage, and what would you advise them?
Thank you. That's such a great question, Kavita. I think that what I've learned from my own journey of loss and grief and recovery and finding or reconnect with my old love of the arts and reinventing myself to become a storyteller and filmmaker, it's a long journey. What I've learned is that there are times when we don't even know the inner strength that we have within us when something tragic or devastating happened to us in our life. Like I could not imagine that I would be able to do all that. I just thought that is just impossible to deal with. I think another aspect of it is when my husband passed away. He was 49 years old at his prime. And he has such deep love for Perry, our son, and for me. And so it was just no other word to describe it. It was truly devastating. But I felt, well, I still have my son, who is so brilliant, amazing, and wonderful, full of love and care, this profound love for his dad. And he's making this film. And so I thought to myself, I cannot crumble. I have to be there for my son because I want him to live a great life that he deserves. And he is full of promise. And so I think just the fact that having my son around and the desire to want to provide for him the best opportunities still gave me the strength to live on and thrive. Another factor was when people deal with grief and loss, a lot of times it's so hard to get out of it because it was just so profound, the loss. And every day you're reminded of their absence. And so it's extremely tough. And a lot of people find it impossible to heal from it. I think in our case, it was really the desire to create, to make story, and to memorialize my husband by telling his story in Changyou's Journey, and then our own story of making that through Journey of 1,000 Miles gave us meaning, give my life meaning. And that inspires me to keep on creating and telling our stories. And so I would say to your listeners that a lot of times when tragedy or setback happens in your life, you can also view it as an opportunity and a test of your character. After some time, I feel that you will be able to go through with it and find the strength within you And one advice I have would be to connect with like-minded people. You can start small. You don't have to quit your job immediately when you realize that what you're doing is not what you want to do. There could be a process. You can start learning about the things that you may have interest from your younger days. Maybe there's something you're always curious about how to do. So start off with curiosity and explore that curiosity. And then connect with people who are doing the things that you are curious about or interested in trying.
Mm-hmm.
For myself, I joined the D Word community, D for documentary. It's a worldwide documentary filmmaker community with people from over 100 countries and over 20,000 filmmakers. It's a vibrant community, and we meet every Friday on Zoom to share our progress and hear speakers talk about their successful experiences. And it's truly wonderful. I made so many friends, found mentors and advisors to work with me on the film now. I also have taken classes from Sundance Institute. They have documentary courses for people who are early in their career. And again, I made a lot of friends and learned from outstanding teachers.
Nice.
So for any line of work that you're interested in, there are people who are teaching it. There are courses available. And so I would encourage people to dig deep into what's going on in that industry, connect with people on LinkedIn or elsewhere, and find out more about it and try to do something small. And then you will find out if this is something that you truly want to do and maybe dedicate more time to.
Yes.
So those would be my advice. And never just give up if you have difficulties, because
yes.
Right? As you know from
yes. I mean,
different profession have their own language. Film has its own language and biotech has its own language. So
yes.
Immerse yourself in it, learn about it, and try something. And for me, one of the most rewarding, gratifying moments was when I see my own progress in shaping up a story with a structure that would make sense. And from my very first cut, which was very rough and I couldn't even watch it now, to now having the sample that people love and respond so enthusiastically. So you see your own progress, and that would give you more confidence to continue.
That's such great advice, too. It really is. I mean, I have to repeat what you said, because I really truly believe that. And one of the things that it's loud and clear is, if sometimes we have setbacks, and you had a huge setback, but what gives your life meaning? What is it that you want to maybe give back or give more meaning to your life? And you found that.
Yes.
And then be curious. And what I always talk about, buried passions, maybe passions that we have that are inside of us that we don't bring out for one reason or the other. And you also brought that out. And then if you see things as an opportunity, and if you really want to do something, there's ways that you can, like connecting with people, learning more about it, and just being curious and
explore
and just start it. And those are great pieces of advice. And in my own life, I did that too, because it's, if you're not going to put yourself out there and understand what you really want and what gives your life meaning, then what's it all about, really, right? So so that's wonderful. And
I want to share, if I could, another aspect of my life that has been transformed in such a positive way is reconnecting with my dad and my sister, who now live in China, in Beijing, my hometown where I grew up.
Nice.
And, it's through the act of making this film and actually working with a therapist starting in 2020 during the pandemic, who told me that when you have things that are difficult to talk about, that among families that you tend to avoid,
Yes.
then you gradually become polite strangers to each other. Oh, that just hit me.
Mm.
Realize my dad and I are becoming polite strangers because he disapproved of my filmmaking. He used to be so proud of me when I was doing biotech and top students everywhere. And then when he saw that I dropped all that, gave it up, and now pursuing this thing that I've never learned as a middle-aged mom, he thought I was crazy. And so he wasn't too crazy about it and he disapproved. And I had that little girl in me. I always want to get his approval, even
Of
at this
course.
age with grown
Yes.
son,
Yeah,
right? So
I can
that's part of
relate.
my
Yeah.
culture. Yeah. So I just felt really hurt and disappointed. So after hearing my therapist's words about polite strangers, I thought, my dad is 80s, in his 80s, and not many years left. I
Hmm.
would hate to see our relationship remain as polite strangers. That would be just terrible.
Hmm.
I decided to reach out to him by a video chat on WeChat. And I just told him, Dad, I'm seeing a therapist and we're talking about these polite strangers. And I also want to ask you to confirm that if you indeed disapprove of my filmmaking career, I want to talk about it. He said, yes. He said, I think that we all should give back to society. And the best way, in my mind, to give back to society is through focusing in one area of expertise and becoming the best you can be in that trade for decades. And then you retire, then that's the best way to give back. So I said to my dad, I said, I would think exactly like you because if I were you, because that's exactly what you did.
Yes.
But I'm on a different path. In my view now, in my life, the best way I think I can give back to society is by telling our personal story of my transformation, how my son went from tug of war to best friends and creative partners with unconditional love. And I really want to use my film to help heal and reconnect families. So that's what I view as my best way to give back. And so he all of a sudden understood.
Beautiful.
Oh, I see now.
Mm.
I think I can support you now.
How beautiful.
It was just this cathartic moment of reconnection. Now we talk regularly by video chat, and he would ask me every time about how things
Hmm.
are with my film, and very supportive and allow me to film him during our call.
Oh,
So
that's beautiful.
amazing. Yeah. So it's this
Yeah, that's beautiful.
reconnecting back to your family that
Yes.
maybe were estranged earlier, not
Yes.
as close. And so that's the power of storytelling.
Hmm.
And as humans, we've been telling stories for thousands of years.
Yes. And
And stories,
they allow
yeah,
us to
connected.
share and connect and also keep the legacy going.
Exactly. The
And
legacy. Yeah.
yeah. You had asked me, and I know we're almost getting to a close here, but you had asked me to what was some of the most memorable parts of some of the what I've seen of so far
Mhm.
of your film. And I think the fact that despite the trajectory in our lives, it seems to be taking one path, leads us along one path, and we think that we're along this path and we're not going to change. But we can, and we can reinvent ourselves, and we can do that if we listen to what our heart says, and if we develop the courage, like you've so exemplified in your life, and just to go after what's always been inside, and
Mhm.
and ultimately all the obstacles that are in our way will turn into opportunities in a way, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see the end result of even the journey is what is most important, like your son said, right? It's
Yeah.
the journey. So that's I think that, and then the vulnerability and the courage that both you and your son have showed throughout this process. So that's kind of the things that
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
shown
The
to me.
vulnerability. That's a very good point, Kavita. I think my decision to reveal myself, to show my son who I am as a real person, that was also a watershed moment that built our trust with each other. And that was the reason why I wanted to tell him things that very few parents would ever want to reveal to their kids. And I think your listeners will find out more when they watch the
Yes.
film.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us, where are you now in the filmmaking process, and when can the audience expect, to see your documentary? And tell us, if you want to learn more, how do we see the film and engage with you, and what's happening now? What's next?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kavita. So our film started in 2012 when my husband was dying from cancer. So it's been 10 years. And I would say that 98% of the footage have been shot and archived. So I'm in late production and early post-production. My hope is that by the end of next year, 2023, I will have either a finished film or close to finishing that, having a final cut. And my hope is that by 2024, I will have a finished film screen at film festivals and later on, wider release. So that's the plan. And I would love to get community support from people who can relate with the story, which is really everyone, because we all have parents. And we're the grown children of our parents, and many of us have children too. So we have that dual perspective as parents and also as grown children of our own parents. So there's the dynamic of the parent-child relationship that is in every family that people can relate to and resonate with. And so I welcome your listeners to check out my film. I would also welcome your listeners to sign up on my film website so that they will get also a free link to watch our Oscar qualified film, Changyou's Journey, as well as getting exclusive invitations for future screenings as they become available. And then I have social media. I welcome people to connect with me there. And most of my social media handles are Tiger to Zen Mom on
Nice.
Facebook and YouTube, Instagram, and I think Twitter. So I use mostly LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube.
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll have all that information definitely and all the links in the show notes. And you mentioned that you're hoping to have the film done by 2024 in film festival. So hopefully I might see you in the Toronto International, in the TIFF.
Yes, indeed.
That would be lovely.
Right. It would be fantastic because Changyou's Journey had our international premiere at Toronto International
TIFF,
Film Festival that we traveled to.
Okay, well then we'll have a party here in Toronto.
Yes, yes. And at the same time, I'll just again remind your listeners that we can all live the life you imagine. That's my motto these days.
And you're a testament to that.
Thank you. And there's just so many interesting, fascinating stories. Each of us have those stories in us if we are willing to look, work on it to tell that story that only we can tell.
Yes. And this is why I do what I do. I share stories of women every week, and because we can all learn from each other's stories. And I've learned so much from you today, and I'm sure our listeners have as well.
From you too.
Yes. Very emotional, but it was it was lovely, and thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable. And we will definitely encourage everyone to follow all your links and to support your incredible artistic journey, and look forward to seeing the end result. And maybe when it's done, we can come back and discuss it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, and we will stay in touch, and all the best to you.
And same to you. And I applaud for what you're doing in our collective third act in life.
Yes.
exploring new opportunities and doing something that you feel passionate about. I think that's really our time now.
It is. It is.
Do what we
That's what I
want.
always say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kavita.
I'm sure this podcast episode moved you deeply, as it did me. As you heard the incredible reinvention story of Zhu Shen from tragedy to inspiration. As she shared her story with such vulnerability about how she, quote, chose to bare my soul to reconnect with my son, reclaim my buried artistic prowess, transforming from a tiger mom to a Zen mom. Here are her key takeaways. Number 1, you're only limited by your own imagination. Number 2, I'm gutsy and I'm not afraid. The fearlessness empowered me to think about possibilities in life. Ask people what you want. 80% of the time, people say yes to me because I thought of asking. Number 3, what I've learned is that there are times when we don't even know the inner strength that we have within us, when something tragic or devastating happens to us in our lives. 4, when tragedy or setbacks happen in our life, you can view it as an opportunity and a test of your character. After some time, you will be able to find the strength within you. Number 5, connect with like-minded people. You can start small. You don't have to quit your job immediately when you're realizing that what you're doing is not what you want to do. You can start learning about the things that you may have interest in from your younger days. 6, start off with curiosity and explore that curiosity and connect with people who are doing the things that you are curious about or interested in trying. Try to do something small and you will find out if that is something you truly want to do. Number 7, when you see your own progress, that will give you more confidence to continue. And number 8, live the life you imagine. That's my motto these days. Thank you so much for listening and for following my podcast this year. It means a lot to me, and it also means a lot in order for this podcast to grow and share its positive messages, that you share it with your friends and family. Remember, if you want 2023 to be the year you finally pursue your buried passions, take 10 minutes to fill out the attached, free, downloadable, and fillable self-reflection guide for 2023. The prompts in this free self-reflection guide will help you take stock of your current life satisfaction and give you some time and space to think about what you really want for yourself in the new year and beyond. This is a glimpse into some of the elements of my coaching program, and it will allow you time to reflect quietly on your vision for yourself. The link to download this free self-reflection guide is in the show notes. If you have any questions about it or would like to find out more about how I can help you transition into a career and life which aligns with your strengths, your passions, and your values, send me a quick email at kavita@powerpurposeplay.ca. Join me for our last episode of the year next week when I share my own reflections of 2022 and my visions for the new year. In the meantime, I wish you a very, very Merry Christmas, filled with love and fun and good cheer, good food, and lots of laughs. From my family to yours, happy holidays.